Yeah,
One of
hypnosis,
the,
I guess,
with
is
the
a
breathing,
focused form of hypnosis. They're like focusing on that one person who's the hypnotist, and they're focusing on you, but it is all like,
yeah,
it's
there's
constant
yeah.
hypnosis.
So yeah. But I do remember one of the breathing techniques I used to use when I was hypnotizing people was to get them to make their out breath longer than their in breath. And that's similar to what happens as you go to sleep. You know, you breathe out more, breathe in. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. All true.
Interesting.
Morning, Adrienne. Adrienne. Is that how you say it?
Hi,
How do you say your name?
Adrienne.
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 Yeah, good one.
It's my first time here.
Yes, I saw you as a new face, but I can see people I've seen before as a new face too. Yeah. So where are you up to on this journey?
I am being guided at Liberation Unleashed by Henry. And I haven't had an experiential shift yet. I can see it conceptually. I understand it through the mind. But no matter how many times I look and look and look, nothing really happens. But I'm sort of letting it rest at this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too bothered about it at the moment.
Okay, that's interesting. So your overall feeling is contentment about what's happening or what's not happening?
More and more so, yes. This contentment.
Yeah, yeah. So what's it coming out of? What's coming out of what is? So I get this image of you moving into contentment about it, but coming out of something else. On what's that something else?
Well, just a very strong obsession and seeking, and
Right. Okay. Yeah.
just extreme unhappiness about the whole thing.
Yep.
But it's now settling down, and I'm sort of, I can't say I'm giving up, but because there's no one here who would do that, but
Yeah.
it's sort of settling down somehow. But I decided to come here to not to stop altogether.
Mm-hmm. To get unsettled again?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it was the yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got a big stick here, so I'm going to poke the bear. I see that as a good thing to do.
Vince, did you switch the recording from one meeting to the other?
No, I've just continued. I'll separate them
Okay.
with software later. It's easier than stopping and
Oh.
starting again. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know these things.
Yeah. Okay. While I'm at it, hey, Jenny, what will you send me an email? Are you on my notification list?
Of
For meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I am.
Yeah, you probably are, but if you get the email, but I can't recognize, I go through 200 and something emails addresses and I can't find one that I think, oh, that's Jenny. So will you email me, respond to me, because I've got a client that wants to talk to you and I'll tell you about it on email if you respond.
Just reply to the link that you sent for this?
Yeah, just reply to that email because that's got my address. Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah. Where's him? Jeremy. So how are you traveling, Tim?
No real complaints.
That's a nothing thing. Come on now. I'm not being social here.
That's kind of my standard answer, so I don't go into my head and talk
I've
for the
got one
next
of them
90
too.
minutes.
Okay, so more
Um,
specifically, what's different since last week when you were here for the first time?
Well, listening to Pernella and thinking about something she said that, and Angelo, even for that example, that somehow I'm making this all up. I've got I used a carrot on a stick analogy, and I think I'm beginning to see and hope I'm beginning to see that this is just going to keep going on and on and on. You're never going to get that carrot.
Mm-hmm.
But then the question arises, what next? And I might suspect that you would say, well, nothing. But I think what Angela was suggesting is that you look into the feeling that you're trying to avoid. And I think Pernella really pushes that and pushing you back into the body, like where are your feet, what's the sensation in your hands, trying to get to what you're trying to avoid. And, I just draw a blank. I don't find any existential dread or fear of death or whatever, but there's certainly the struggle there. That's visceral. That's continuous, whether I want to, upgrade my life somehow or try and pursue what you might call spiritual pursuits.
Yep. So do you have an idea that this, whatever it is that you might be trying to avoid by whatever you do, do you get the idea that that's a big thing, or that it should be a big, dramatic, traumatic event?
Yeah.
What if
yeah,
I
and
told
that
you,
and that and I can't open the cave,
yeah, sure.
that,
What if I told you that your stress levels as a result of some traumatic event happened simply because somebody spoke sternly to you and you don't even remember what it was, and that was all it took for you to get into that stress state? And what you're looking for isn't anything big at all. It's something that was so absolutely usual that it's totally unnoticed now.
it's funny that you say that, because the reports that you get from people that woke up have sort of come through the doorway of trauma. And I had a good parenting in a sense that I took a few backs of the hand here and there and a few stern words, and maybe I was more sensitive and lived in a more indifferent home, but that's not trauma,
Yeah,
That's
you're
you're
minimizing.
I guess because
That's trauma to
I'm
be hit
walking,
by
maybe that's
to
a
be
child
hit
being
by an
hit by a
adult and a
giant.
child.
Yeah.
So you're minimizing. So there might be a bit of, you're kind of freezing a bit. You might be a bit numb. There might be numbness.
And
Check out that.
I can take on the state of mind of my family where it's like, well, you had a rough upbringing, did you? Well, look around you. You got a good job, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't seem to be doing too bad from where we're standing, whereas I'm not in rehab, but yeah, right. that's funny that I don't sort of I'll carry my scars, kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't deserve a Purple Heart over this. I don't know if you know what Purple Heart is,
Yeah.
but
So you see that
minimize.
comparison thing that's going on, that you compare yourself to others and you've got nothing
Mhm.
to complain about,
Yeah.
I mean, I copped the back of the hand and I'm doing all right, eh? So yours was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess there is for me, and I don't know, it seems like there is a story there that says we all suffered trauma, and that what we determine as trauma is really different, but we all, it's a child's job to be traumatized by their environment. At least that's what seems to happen. And here we are as adults still expressing that same trauma. So there's a story, and I don't know if it's really accurate or not, but I recognize that it is something that floats around in my psyche when I guide people. I'm always looking to get them out of that trauma, whatever it is. To recognize that now as an adult, we've got an ability to cope with that we didn't have as a child. So there's an
I work
underlying story that's just there, for me.
and I shouldn't minimize it.
Well, I don't know. No, I don't know what you should do.
Yeah, I heard trauma isn't what happened to us. Trauma is what we made it mean.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, exactly.
So what we make it mean drives us unconsciously. So when something similar happens, it feels similar in our bodies.
It could be, look, one sentence that some teacher at preschool said, "Sit down, Johnny, you're a pain in the ass." Right? And there's Johnny fucked for the rest of his life. And from that one sentence,
Oh my gosh.
Who knows? We don't know. But yeah, so we don't have to know what that trauma is too. That's a big one. We don't have to dig it out and expose the details of it.
Why is that?
Well, because as Jenny just said, it was constructed anyway. And just as our memory is constructed. So if you remember
My story that
the
story that I'm telling myself now is that I have resentment, that there's resentment because, I can look at my past and say, well, what am I bringing to this? I'm the one who's resentful now. Well, I have to deal with my resentment because I can't undo the past, and maybe I have to reframe it in some way. But in the meantime, I'm being resentful.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that reframing is
Another story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the resentment comes from the memories in the mind going back and then feeling a certain way and calling that resentment. But the way it's running your life in real time is, let's say you go to the grocery store and somebody gives you a look and you instantly on a level you may not be aware of, feel something in your body from that look. And it's a very familiar feeling, something that's been unresolved. And then you start spinning stories. The mind starts spinning stories about that. So that's how it's running you unconsciously until you go in and feel when that look happens. And when that happens, it's like left as a vibration in your body that's unresolved and unlooked at.
Yeah, it's I can feel it now. It's like having too much coffee. It's you just want to scatter and get away.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be something big that happened to you. It's that something happened, the little child made something up, and now it's still in the body, unlooked at, running you to the point of going to the grocery store, your wife looks at you, or
Yeah.
who knows?
Oh yeah. My first girlfriend, I walked away from her when I felt the way that I perceived my father had to live with my mother. They were married for 50 some odd years, but I felt myself being treated the same way. And it's like, I'm not going to live my dad's life. No fucking way. Not at 20 years old,
And there's a difference between walking away to avoid a feeling and integrating that feeling and walking away consciously. One of them, you're in a flight mode, and the other one
React.
is, it's a mode of reaction to avoiding a feeling. And the other one is that feeling is not dangerous anymore. And you're consciously walking away from
So
a
if I
situation.
say, okay, I understand the psychology of this, where's my enlightenment?
Enlightenment is the enlightenment, like who's aware of all this? The pattern. Who's the pattern? Who is this pattern? Right? Is it a person or is it just patterns
Yeah.
running? Right? They're just
Yeah,
patterns
yeah.
happening. There's nobody there. And so
Yeah,
the
well,
awareness,
okay, yeah. I
so
could write.
the
I
fact
could
that
write
you're
the exam and
awake,
get an A on that. Hmm.
the fact
Yeah.
that you're
What do I do
awake,
with that? What do? Hmm.
the fact that you're awake, witnessing these patterns rather than thinking
Okay.
they are you. The
Hmm.
awareness is watching the patterns consciously rather than being lost in the belief that they are a you.
Lost in the belief that there are you.
So let me jump in here. So as you following with Jenny's fantasy about you being in the grocery store and getting a look, right? That look triggers something in you that you don't even recognize all of that, because what you do is you tell yourself a story that it's that person who gave you the look that you're responding to.
Right.
Right. But in actual fact, you're not. You're responding to something that's been internalized. You don't have to go back and find what that original trauma was. The moment you recognize that you are responding to something in you and not something out there, not from that person behind the counter who gave you the look, you're responding to something in you. Okay, if you get that, there's your enlightenment.
Thank you.
An analogy came to mind a moment ago when we were talking about degrees of trauma. I thought about the distinction between a paper cut, which is tiny, but they still hurt like hell. That how you respond to that paper cut doesn't it may be traumatic in the sense that you can't stop thinking about it, and it hurts, and you carry it with you, and it affects your whole day. You don't need to get stabbed for that to be for that to affect your day. The paper cut can still be a relatively big deal.
That's true. And that thing about comparing to other people, I have something that I call the subjective equivalence of pain. So the worst I've ever experienced, worst pain I've ever experienced, let's say that I've broken a leg, which I have not, knock on wood, whatever. But you've had a paper cut. They're equivalent if they are our worst, not equal, but my worst is equal to your worst. You can't judge pain between people. You know, we've all been through different levels of it, and we all have our stories about it. And it's not useful to compare my paper cut, your paper cut, to my broken arm or whatever. Make sense?
Yeah, I was going to say there's no degree of trauma. They're all equivalent. So somebody can be a paraplegic and be happiest person on the planet. Another person gets a paper cut and they're miserable. So it's not the thing that happened that causes the trauma. It's the story that's built around it that causes the trauma.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether it's a paper cut, you're still continuing the story, or if you broke your leg, you're still continuing the story. I listened to Pernella talk about this. This is getting, yeah.
And it still runs your
whatever.
life.
Like the paper cut and you pop out of it. The broken leg, you pop out of it.
Well, you pop out of it and then it runs you's life.
Right.
Because now
right.
you're having a hard time with your relationships, and you're having a hard time with your boss, and you're having a hard time because you pop out of it, and anything that looks at you sideways triggers that
Right.
meaning on a deep level that hasn't been resolved. But there's no you there.
How is it
It-
you can, how, I asked this once before and I said, well, who is it that sees that there's no you there? And, you know, the man slapped his hands and said, no one, you know.
Well, that you'd have to look at, you know,
Mhm.
if you aren't your patterns, you're the awareness watching the patterns. Just
You're
to
the
kind of
awareness watching it.
simple.
The
And
awareness,
then you
yeah.
look at, then you go deeper, and then, well, who's the awareness? And you even go deeper than that to where there is nothing
Yeah,
there.
Vince brought that up last time. That's still sitting on the shelf and I see it every
In the
day when I
meantime,
come
be
home from work.
awareness.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
be the
meantime-
awareness, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not, apparently, I don't become the awareness. I've never not been the awareness.
Right, right. So that's what I'm saying. It's rest there for a while you're looking at patterns, and ultimately, as you question, well, who is the awareness? You'll see that there is no one, nothing even there. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, it's to look at patterns, including believing that you're awareness.
Right, right. Yeah, I have an acquaintance who said every time you hear somebody say I'm awareness, I want to hit him with a Zen stick, you know. Hit who hits who with the Zen stick? Then you become insufferable
I used to
secret.
be the man with the Zen stick on that one too. But somebody pointed out, I think Paul Simpson pointed out to me that it can be a resting place, and it's a legitimate resting place to stand while you survey what's going on. But you will drop that in the next step for sure. Yeah.
I just have to say, I love that analogy of paper cut. It's really good
Mm. Yeah,
because it is.
I had the realization that, like, people go through life, a lot of people, we all know people that their level of stress would not be any different if they were on a battlefield in the middle of shells raining down around them. And yet they're only at a football game, or they're only feeling slighted by that look at the shop. Whatever it is, their emotion is intense. Absolutely incredible. It's the maximum that they can experience.
Mm.
People are ready to kill over their team losing at the football, or over somebody telling them that they're stupid, or whatever insult that they might respond to. But yeah, there's no difference. So yeah, that paper cut can be exactly the same as somebody standing in the middle of a battlefield.
Well, and also if you think of, if you're a child and it's a paper cut, it's going to be much more intense because it's your first experiences of pain.
Yep. It's everything.
So the analogy of the paper cut being, well, my dad only slapped me when you were 4 or whatever. You know, to an adult, that's a paper cut, but in actuality, it's, you know,
Yeah.
something much different in that, you know, in that experience. But yeah, it's just, I really thought that was a good way to describe it.
So let's change the idea of being awake. I won't use that word enlightenment. I don't like it. Let's change the idea of that as to not some fantastic blissful place that we float through where everything is heaven and wonderful and Walt Disney stars are constantly there. Let's bring it back to simply being aware of what comes up, or rather, not of what comes up, that things are coming up, that we are being triggered. So I guess another story I have is that the end to all of this stuff is to recognize when we are being triggered. And it's easy to imagine. We start with imagining that, okay, something in the environment, somebody, almost always family are great at it. Something out there triggers us. And what happens when we get triggered? We get instantly catapulted into some emotional state, whatever degree of emotion that is, but we get catapulted into it by being triggered by something. So at a gross level, being awake is simply being aware of the fact that I've been triggered. And then we can go on to say, and how do we respond to that? So we respond to being triggered before any of this, before any seeking started, or back when we were totally deluded. We respond to being triggered by blaming something in our environment for triggering us, and we respond to that. When we start waking up, we appreciate that it's not something in the environment, it's something in us. And when we can appreciate that, we respond differently to it. We don't have to punch the person behind the counter out because they gave us that look. We go away curious as to what's going on internally. That's an entry point to waking up. That's the beginning of it. And so the responses start to become different.
I've heard that word curious used a number of times. And I've heard also that not being attached to outcome or not wanting it to be different. I wonder how, just being, well, if you're attached to outcome, you're attached to the story, I guess. And if you're curious, I guess whatever's presented to you, you're not. I just wonder what if there's more to this curious.
The big difference is that when you're attached to it, there's this underlying acting out that happens. Whereas when you're curious, you're observing the thing from a bit of a distance, right? So you're not lost in the content of the story, but rather you're seeing that there is a story. And then you wonder about where it fits and how it fits. That's where the curiosity. But here's the big one. You don't have any control over how you respond to that stuff. You just respond, don't you? Isn't that your experience? You can say, oh, I won't do that. I shouldn't respond that way, but that's just another story, because next thing you do respond that way. Or maybe you don't. But you don't, not because you thought you wouldn't. You don't because that thought was just one of the conditions that enabled you to not, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting, Vince, because sometimes falling into unconsciousness of a pattern, like somebody looks at you crooked and then boom, in a pattern, unconscious, playing it out like a robot. Or becoming aware in that moment almost like freezes time, and becoming aware of the sensation in the body almost freezes time. Yet still sometimes words will come out that look like the old pattern, right? Like, oh, you blah, 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 be mean to me or whatever. But there's awareness watching it happen, almost like it's watching a play. And then for me, the next step with that, as if it went in steps, but for each, it'll freeze time. It'll feel the vibration, the sensations in the body. Words will start to come out, and then there's like a stopping because it doesn't make sense to say them anymore. And so that's just slowing down the mechanism, not like it happens ABC, in that order, but that's my experience of becoming aware in the middle of a trigger.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, especially in the beginning, there's we all know somebody who, no matter how many times you say to them, you've told me that already, they've still got to tell you. That's that urge to complete is a big one there. Yeah. Yeah.
But watching it happen and being curious about the mechanism of it
Yep.
is being aware and not lost in unconsciousness, just playing out the pattern like a robot.
So it's a bit more. So it's interesting. You say, when we say being curious, we kind of get involved in the idea of what curious is, but being curious is also about a whole lot of not doing stuff, not thinking stuff. So when you're curious, forget about curious itself. When you're curious, it pushes out a whole lot of the other things that you would have normally have done. You can't be curious and angry.
It's like
So when you're
just
curious,
watch.
there's no room for anger. When you're curious, there's no room for self-blame. There's no room for victimhood. There's no room for anything. When you're curious, it's an openness. You're inviting a discovery to happen.
And even if anger does get triggered, the curiousness is watching.
Yep, it'll see that happen. Yeah,
Experience of that reaction. So it's a whole unfolding. It's a whole unraveling the pieces of the pattern through awareness. Curious to me is watching with awareness, no matter what shows up, because what shows up can be an emotional reaction or a story or an unconscious reaction, an automated response. I mean, whatever shows up is what's happening.
Yep.
And being aware to what is happening.
Yeah. So if we were to give you a list of rules, there would be so many that you never follow them all at once. Okay. You can't decide what's going to come up. You can't decide whether you're going to get triggered or not. So you cop a look and you get triggered. The fact that you see that you were triggered changes things. Might be slowly, it might be progressive, but it changes things. And my suggestion, I'll repeat myself here, but that's worth it. My suggestion for helping that process along is to reward the recognition that you saw you were lost in a story. Doesn't matter what the story is. The fact that you saw it, and you might go, oh, that happened to me yesterday. That's okay. That's you seeing it happen. So you reward the recognition. And I underline and put in capitals and bold and italic the word recognition. You reward the recognition by laughing. And if you can do it, laugh out loud, great big guffaws. If you can't, if you're in public or whatever, just smile to yourself internally, whatever. You reward that recognition. And that starts a whole new neural pathway in your brain. That starts a whole lot of new things. But the biggest thing is it disrupts the habit. So the moment you see that you're getting lost, and in the beginning, it might be the next day that you see it, but after a while, you'll get closer and closer to the event. And you'll even experience, I certainly experienced, and I remember doing it, I was I was standing in the doorway of my garage. I can remember that. And I experienced that I was about to get lost in thought, in a thought story. It hadn't happened, but I was about to go into it and I recognized it. So that can happen too. But that laugh, that changes the hormones in the body. It changes the body chemistry big time. Even if you fake it, that's fine. Faking it will still do it. It'll still change the body chemistry. So you get rid of stress hormones and you replace it with feel good hormones. And that's a simplistic way to look at it, but that's kind of what happens. That I'll guarantee you, if you laugh every time you see that you were lost in story at recognizing it, in a few weeks, it'll be radically different for you. That's really powerful stuff. I'll get down off my soapbox now.
That reminds me of what you hear in meditation instruction, where the getting lost in thought isn't a problem, and celebrating the catching yourself having been lost. That's the point of it. It's
That's
not
right.
to not get lost in thought, it's to catch yourself.
Yeah, because we all get lost in thought. It happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I got 40 years of failed meditation, and I use the word fail. And I recognize that a lot. That's the most common denominator of any meditation, is another failure.
Mm.
Instead of recognizing,
Yep.
oh, there you go, you caught yourself thinking you're failing.
And did you and these things, of course, constantly lead you into deeper and deeper stuff if you're open to that. So then you go, what's this thing called failure? Yeah. And then you go, oh, that's because I had an expectation that something else was success.
Yeah, I'm not living up to my vows.
Which of course you can't. They're impossible.
I had friends and acquaintances in the path I was on, and these were musicians, and I said we should start another brand called the Vow Breakers.
Call the
Vow Breakers.
Yes.
Breaking your vows.
Yep. Yeah. And the vows that society or our culture, and I'm never quite sure which is the better way to put that, but that peer group pressure that we experience from the beginning to perform or behave or be a certain way, that's one of the things that goes out the window with this stuff. You know, we no longer have to conform. We'll choose to frequently just for expedience sake, but we're not compelled any longer to conform to those ridiculous rules about politeness or whatever else comes up. Yeah, they have a place, but we're not prisoner anymore. That's where the term liberation comes in, I think. How are you traveling, Kathleen?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Well, I just finished a 5-day retreat 15 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
So,
You're still high?
so I don't know where I am.
I can remember
it was wonderful.
Was that Angelo's retreat?
Yeah. So it was a Zoom retreat, and as coincidences go, which there are no coincidences, I didn't want to be at my own house because of distractions. So I have a friend who's a Maronite nun, and she goes, oh, we have an apartment you can use, just a little apartment. So I was like, okay, that's great. She called me, good news, bad news, the apartment's not available, but we have a condo at the beach. So here I am looking at the Gulf, have this fabulous setting, which I didn't plan or anything. And so I was going to put my phone on mute and put it away. But the Wi-Fi is fine, but I'm having trouble with my laptop, but I'm okay with y'all. So I don't know what that was about. So half the retreat was on my phone, but it was all fine. And never did I go like, oh, I wish, or oh, damn it, or, nothing, it's just been wonderful. It's the only thing that's come up is, a lot of meditation and, who am I? I was really like on that one for a while. And then I thought, why am I on that one? So then spiritual bypassing, that's a weird expression. I've never used it before, but I kind of wonder if I may be doing some of that because when I think about, I know there's no body here, I mean, the self part I'm fine with, and really what I say and I mean a lot in all kind of settings is right here, right now. This is it. This is it right here, right now. And I truly mean that. I think I bug my friends because I say it so much, but I really mean that. And then what I also say a lot, and I think it bugs my friends also, is I don't know. I don't know. They'll say something and they'll be like, well, what do you think, Kathleen? I'm like, I don't know. And to the point where they're aggravated with me because they're like, don't you have an opinion? And I'm like, I don't know.
No.
So am I bypassing?
It sounds like you're in a great place to be, except for this bloody question. So, what is bypassing, spiritual bypassing? It's a good term because, it's evocative, So what is it? What are we talking about when we talk about it? We talk about arriving at a conclusion logically rather than experientially, right? So if you say, I'm suffering, and you experience suffering in this fantasy, and then you say, but there's no one here to experience the fantasy. And then the fantasy stops. All right, let me say that again. If you say there's no one here to experience the suffering, and the suffering stops as a result of that, then you've spiritually bypassed it, right? So you've succeeded in stopping the suffering, but you haven't done anything about the cause of the suffering. All you've done is symptom removal. And that's what spiritual bypassing is. It's basically, it's using logic to change your experience. Do you look,
Well,
that doesn't make sense to you?
No, that makes perfect sense. But the reason I question it is because it sounds like I don't care. Well, I don't care. It sounds that way because I don't. I mean, I so much of this is just baloney,
Yes,
and
of course it is. Okay, so look.
I don't know. It sounds like just doubt to me. Doubt. Sorry.
I don't know. Yeah, let's not label it as such.
Well, but rather than spiritual bypassing, I meant to say,
And of course, that's labeling too. Yeah.
You're not feeling anything. If there's nothing, if you're not feeling, for me, I know if I'm going, if something's means something to me is if I feel something in my body. So if I don't feel anything, people ask me stuff. I'm like, oh, how am I supposed to know that? I don't know. Because there's no time, right? There's no future. And I would just be making crap up in my head if I thought I knew anything. So, but I don't feel anything. If somebody says something and then I feel like uncomfortable that they think I don't care, and then, and I be with that for a minute and then it passes, well, then I'm done. Right. So to me, bypassing would be ignoring any sensation reaction in my body that would tell me that I'm not telling myself the truth.
that helps. Yeah, because I really think I'm fine. I mean, I think I'm very not. I mean, you got your ups and your downs. I mean, life is life, but for the most part, I think I'm doing really well.
Yep.
So
if you're
thank
not,
you.
you would feel it. Yeah. If you're not, you would feel. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. And
yeah, and like you're not intellectually talking yourself out of it.
There's an issue here that we all experience, and that is you're a sane person living in an insane world. So the moment you start to compare yourself to those who are not awake, that's a bit funny as well. But anyway, the moment you start comparing yourself, you're in trouble, because they've got a huge momentum behind them. Or maybe it's inertia, but they've got lifetime of experience. They've got all of society. They've got all of the media. They've got everything is behind them saying they're okay, they're right. And here you are out of sync with that. Now, you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. There's no going back. So you can never become insane and therefore feel normal again. Maybe you could if you tried really hard, you know. Except you can't try, of course. But people do go back to sleep because being awake is pretty uncomfortable for them because they're out of sync with everybody else. So it's like the reality for an alcoholic is they can never have another drink, even when they've been sober for 20 years. Right? You can't accept the rubbish that they come up with without becoming an addict again. Maybe.
If you're around people who are lost in stories, because that's really what it is, they're lost in stories. And so they seem asleep because they're lost in a story or a narrative or whatever. And you can see through that and you don't buy it and you know that there's no reality there. So that's just like Vince was saying, you're not in sync with them. So it wouldn't be, the bypass would be, does that bother you? And if it doesn't, and if you think it should bother you, but it's not bothering you, then that's just the thought, but there's nothing, that's my trigger. Do I feel, I mean, my sign is, do I feel something? And they can be very, very subtle. But I wouldn't search for it because if it's subtle, it'll get louder. So.
Well, this has been very helpful because, you know, I've been on this retreat for 5 days and it was wonderful. Day 3, I think, is when I started this who am I thing. And then I was like, who's asking and who cares, you know? And, but then and I'm in a comfortable place. I mean, there's nothing at all. And, but then I thought, well, am I like, is something wrong with me? You know? And I'm like, no, I don't think so, you know? But anyway, so y'all have clarified that, thank you. I just needed some clarification.
Yep. So the whole idea, everything can take you deeper. The whole idea that there's something wrong, that implies that there's something that's right. And then you realize that, of course, this right thing is made up by our society, our culture. You know, if we're in an African pygmy tribe somewhere, we'd have different ideas about what's right and wrong. So the whole idea of wrong is another fantasy. So to get now, I'll use another phrase that's a weird one too. Being honest with yourself. That's something that you can do in this place that you're in because of the environment you've just come out of, that workshop. There's no doubt, from my experience, my memory, there's no doubt a huge amount of openness there that you're experiencing at the moment. Openness, which is a great opportunity. But that'll change. As you go back out and start interacting with people, that openness will probably reduce a bit in a protective way. It doesn't need to, but you will need to behave in a certain way in order not to get run over by a bus or abused by some person or whatever. So you will conform to the bullshit dream that most people live in. You'll conform to a degree of that, but that's not acquiescence. That's just being practical, you know. So when we say you're a sane person in an insane world, well, that's saying you're different to everybody or most people. But everybody's different in their own way, you know. But we've got a different drumbeat to walk to now. That's all. Yeah.
You know, and it's so helpful when I see people, when I perceive people lost in stories, because sometimes what I'll tell myself is, oh, that's what it looks like when I'm lost in a story. And I can watch the resistance and the push-pull if the different opinions or whatever happens. And it's like, oh, and I get to see what it's like when I'm lost in a story, when I perceive others lost in stories.
And you're getting another thing that Jenny's saying. You can be awake and still get lost in stories. You'll respond differently to the way you used to. That's all.
You can watch them of getting lost in the story, right?
So I'm curious, Kathleen, did you just come out of Angelo's 5-day retreat? Yeah, me too. Yeah.
You look really different, Catherine. Your hair is different or something. Yeah.
Well, it's getting longer, and so it's like, yeah, in back.
Yeah. When you guys talk about just coming out of a retreat, it takes me back to the euphoria I always felt at the end of a Vipassana retreat. You know, that last day, if somebody said, give me a house, I'd just happily hand them the keys. You know, that was just a wonderful place to be. I loved everybody and everything. It was great. Yeah.
I stayed on that retreat for about a day and a half, and I said, I'm not doing all that fucking meditation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started modulating how much, because what I realized was coming up for me, and there was a point in when I was, and I'm still working with the guide, but when I was working with them, and then I realized, because kind of my entry point to this phase of my process started with Angelo, and kind of introduction to like, oh my God, this is available to anyone. I mean, like, open things way up. But what I realized, there was a comparison going on in me, that I'm not having certain phenomenological like experiences, so therefore it must not be. And the minute I drop my comparison, it's like, oh, it's this, right? And it just like really relaxed. So during the retreat, I noticed the kind of the ramping up in me as I was hearing people talk about, well, just the struggles that go on for all of us at different times. But there was a version of that was touching into like this comparison thing in me again. And so I took a couple of sessions of meditation off and just kind of did my thing. And I actually had, the third morning, I think I woke up kind of middle of the night. I woke up in a dream that it was in essence, what I got was, you're fine, things are being rewired, and they're being rewired for you the way that you need. And it just like, oh, I can keep just doing this
That
the
was
way
a
that
relaxation.
Yes, and the joy and the contentment just like came right back in. And so then, yeah, the balance of the time was much more friendly.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Is this stuff relevant to you, Adrienne?
Yes, just experiencing quite strong emotions at the moment. So
Yeah. Well, here people with absolutely full of love and acceptance and support for anything. And I'm crying as I talk about it. Yeah, it's okay to say and feel anything here. And if you bring it out, you'll get lots of help. You'll get lots of support. Yeah, for sure. I hope you feel that anyway without me having to say it.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for the reminder, Vince. I realized that this is like an interesting space that it's not like a fake support. It's like this amazing combination of like, I don't know, compassion and acceptance and support, but also calling out when you see something and being honest about what you're observing in somebody else, and calling, BS if that's what you're seeing. And it's I don't, I'm struggling with words because it's a really it's so unique. I don't have this in anywhere else in my life where I can be so vulnerable, but vulnerable also to being challenged. And if I say something that you're interpreting as, wait, you're kidding yourself with what it seems you're thinking.
Yep.
I don't have that anywhere else. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, here that authenticity can be, just let it run free. Obviously, when you go to the shops, you can't do that, but you can still feel it. You can be authentic to yourself, even if you're nodding and smiling at somebody or you say, "I'm fine," when somebody says, "How you going?" I try to train myself these days not to say, "How are you going?" but to say, "Good day." Because every time it comes out, "How you going?" I go, "Oh, maybe they'll tell me how they really are," and I don't really want to know. Because that's what I did. Every time somebody said, "How you going?" I used to tell them how I was really going, and I discovered that's not what they wanted to hear. Yeah.
I'm going to need to go in a minute because I'm in Mississippi and I live in Louisiana. But Happy New Year's. Can y'all hear me? Am I muted or not? I'm okay. I really, I cannot express in words how grateful I am for this group. I mean, it's Jeremy, like you said, it's such a strange place in the sense that you can be authentic, you can be vulnerable, you can be called out, and it's okay to be called out. It's like the ego has a chance to like, not welcome here. Oh, welcome, but he's got to sit on the side. But whatever the expression is, I from the bottom of my heart, I cannot thank you guys enough. And I do need to go because I need to check out and go on the road. Eve, well, New Year's Eve. So Happy New Year's, everybody. I love y'all.
Happy New Year.
Happy every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going, Liz?
Well, I'm really grateful to be here too and to hear everybody speaking, in particular to have kind of solidarity or camaraderie around when emotions and triggers come up. So I did spend time with family and over the holidays, and I chose to stay not in my mom's home in a separate location, and it created quite a distress in the family system
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And so navigating all of the sensations that come up being in the house with her, so and having time to assimilate on the side and going back and forth. So I was left with more reactivity than I'm accustomed to. And I can see thoughts that come in that have judgments about that reactivity instead of just, this is reactivity, there's more reactivity, there's more content here. So I'm steeping in that.
Family of origin will do that for you. That was an old Ram Dass saying. He said, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend the weekend with your family. Yeah, for sure. And one thing that came to mind was that you could have the fantasy yourself that you've got enough juice there to last for the many years. Every Christmas, New Year get together or whatever that you guys do is an opportunity for you to find what's previously been hidden. It'll come up there for sure. Yeah, it's difficult but good stuff. Yeah. How did you find you what was your reaction to being to your reactivity? Were you
That was
hard
my
on
reaction.
yourself?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I think I always feel like, oh, could it be better? Could I do better? That's part of the thought or the patterning, somehow rising above something. And actually, when I look at it more objectively, I'm like, the reactivity, it was okay. I mean, it's okay. There was some reactivity, it's there, it was okay. I felt good about the trip. I felt good about the way I showed up. I think it's more processing the feelings and
Yes.
what I would call like hurt.
Yep.
And interestingly, I was looking in Christiane's book this morning, and I happened to open up to a page where she was speaking about visiting her brother, and her brother not saying, like, thank you so much for coming, I'm glad you were here, blah, blah, blah. And just said something like, well, next time, let me know when you're going to show up. And I have a lot of feelings about with my mom, it feels like a lot like more, it's never enough. And so there wasn't a lot of thank you for coming, thank you for doing this. And so it's interesting for me to look at that inside myself and the reparenting, I have to do the appreciation of myself and pulling out, the parts in my mother or that I see it, I think, well, she's like this, and what part of that, everything I'm seeing is me. So that's like, fuck, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Everything is so loaded, isn't it? Everything's got so much hanging off it. Stories after stories after stories.
Stories after
hanging off of
stories.
one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm one of 3 girls, all very close together. And I, I'll have a lot of thoughts about, how it should be, who's doing what, comparing this idea of, what's the right way to go about it, who's doing better, who's doing worse, who's responding. And I feel the impact of that in my body. It's very different than just you know, watching and being curious. The part of me that wants to be or thinks it can be strategic comes to the surface.
Mm,
too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so fruitful. There is so much stuff there.
Mm.
And no thoughts came about what this means about your location on the journey, so to speak.
Hmm.
Progress, no thoughts of how success or failure or
It's interesting when I will feel it more with this about a personal progress than like look like on a journey or what the journey is. It which is funny to even say like it's more personal because what the hell does that mean? But it turns more into like disappointment toward myself, but not like, oh, I thought I was further along or I could do this or that, or isn't it supposed to be like this or that? More just generalized disappointment that I might then turn back toward a self,
Mm,
you know, an idea of a self. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Even when you say, I love, when you say, you know, when you notice something, when you recognize it, laugh. And I can feel inside my body, you know, that I am not, so more often than not, it is not laughter that is there. And it feels like it's a journey for it to to be there, you know. It feels more like there's a heaviness or a sadness or a disappointment or a hopelessness that it is somehow moving through.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's interesting to even just be aware of that. You know, it doesn't feel light.
yeah, yeah.
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 But there's also that fake it till you make it suggestion from Vince as well. Just do the body bit, smile, or
Mm.
even if you're like, okay, you know,
Yeah. In the
that's
beginning,
another part of that I think was missed. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the beginning, it's not about humor. That the faking it is probably more the reality at the very beginning because there's nothing funny about it, you know. But it does change the physiology. That's the big part of it.
Mhm.
But but let me tell you, the time will come when you will laugh with genuine humor because of the ridiculousness of what you've just seen came up in you.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Mhm.
it will be humorous.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a funny one because the more we get through this stuff, the more stuff we recognize for what it is, the more filters we've removed, and the more easily deeper stuff comes up. And so it can feel like we're going in the wrong direction, but we're not. We're just shoveling shit as hard as we can, as fast as we can.
You know, I was looking at the whole, I think, by the way, that's beautiful, beautiful description and awareness. Thank you. I was looking at the fake it till you make it. And when I'm around something where I don't want to be open and vulnerable, I'll smile when I don't want to. But like Vince was saying, I'm still being honest with myself in that moment, even if there's a smile plastered on the face as a protection mechanism, because I'm not ready to open and communicate. But as I go in and I process it and I'm authentic with myself and I'm unhappy when I'm unhappy or heavy when it's heavy and light when it's light and just being authentic. And the more that I free myself to be myself authentically, then that starts bleeding through and I don't have to smile when I don't want to smile anymore. And authenticity starts to bleed through into that relationship, because I've come to a point where I'm able to stay open and authentic and not have to protect with that. Let me tell you I'm fine. And let me just smile so that you don't come in when I'm not ready for you. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I bring that back with me home, that authenticity. And then that starts to bleed through to the relationship being, and I'm not talking about complaining and blaming and projecting. I'm talking about just being transparent and authentic with where I'm at, and not having to defend, explain, protect, or close down, and there's degrees of it. There's degrees as it opens up, but it's very healing. Yeah.
Are you traveling, Anna?
No, I unmuted myself. I'm kind of okay. There is a lot things happening and same time like nothing happening. Just one day was a lot of fear coming up, and it was pretty intense. It was a lot in the head, like like very intense thoughts, like very fearful thoughts, and like body was very strongly reacting as well. So it was just like fully feeling that what is happening, and it was like for a couple days it was on and on and on and on, and I was just like feeling and feeling and feeling and feeling into it. And then one day I just like it's kind of like a pressure cooker got full, and then this strong release, just like body shaking and just cramping and all this, and it just came out, and then that relief, and then you feel like it's coming up more, a wee bit more, and like but it's not that intense. So I just sat there and I started to play with zooming in, zooming out. Like you zoom really into that sensation, and it gets pretty intense. And you zoom out, like you hold all your body sensations like a wholeness, and it's kind of lessons. And then you zoom in again, and it gets very intense. And then that release just comes out like, naturally there. And after that second strong release, it just felt like something snapped, like someone's just snapped strings, because body just settled down and mind just quiet. That's it. I just stopped generating some thoughts,
Wow.
and like body settled as well.
Wow, what a
That's
great
that was.
experience, eh? Yeah.
It was, yeah, it was. But I was just like instantly, like mind just like that's it, that's
Yeah.
done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I was very interesting.
So how did you feel when thoughts came back in? Did they come in with a rush, or did they trickle back in?
They didn't settle. They settled down when everything settled down. But when they came in, there was just a life situation, and like that fear response, and they just like, we need to do that, and something's going to happen, and
They came in a
something,
rush.
and just the panic mode.
Mm, mm. So
And
did
yeah.
you have a reaction to them coming back? How did you feel about the fact that that beautiful space of quietness had been invaded by thoughts again? How did you feel about that?
No, they didn't come. I can sense sometimes like see some kind of whispering happening, and then like it's like body getting reaction,
Okay.
but they just like a wind. Just
Okay, so you're still in that place of quietness, eh?
I think so, yeah,
Yeah,
because like
right.
today it's been so like nothing is happening. I was just like really tuning
Yeah,
into a body, and just like I could say like relaxation.
right. Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah. Love
because then yesterday morning I was like I can't say I did retreat, because I was more cheating than retreating.
it.
But I got something got triggered. My expectations didn't match with reality, and but I did. It was like very light. You know, like you didn't feel like a lot of emotional charge with that. But next morning I woke up and I reflected on that, and so it was, you know, like I have been ignored. You know, like they don't care about me. They don't take my interests in consideration. So, you know, like I just sat with that and I sat there and I can feel that, you know, like a heart, you know, like your chest getting tight and like knot in the throat and things like this. And I'm just sitting with that feeling, with that sadness or heartfulness, whatever that is. And then, you know, like, but like, and again, like nothing is coming out. It's just like sitting there. And I remember Angela said, you can ask emotions, like, if you could speak, what would you say? And that's exactly what I've done. And next thing, just like so intensely coming out, they don't love me. They don't want me. And I really just, you know, I just, in that moment, I just feel there is that abandoned child, you know,
Yeah.
so like just feeling so alone and so not wanted. And that cry is coming up. And it was so interesting when you see all that sadness and that heart and, you know, that's kind of painful emotion. Same time there was that like innocence.
Yeah.
That's child innocence and sweetness. So there was a bitterness and sweetness at the same time. And I could feel contraction and openness at the same time. It was very interesting experience. And then, you know, like I was like thinking about what happened. And I just, you know, like, it's not about getting rid of what we call bad emotions. It is opening your capacity to hold anything, all bad and all good. It's just like you just hold anything in yourself, whatever is there, and you can hold both simultaneously. You can experience like pain and pleasure simultaneously. Yeah, it was like, wow. That's basically like, so the
That's
most interesting
fantastic.
thing happened in the last few days.
That
Oh,
was well said,
beautiful.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, cause you know, I always thought like, oh, awakening, you know, that's my idea about awakening. Once I get awakened, I get myself fixed and sorted, all my negative stuff is away, and I'm just enjoying life in blissful state. And then, yeah, you just actually, you realize you just open up for everything.
Yeah.
Whatever is coming up, you just
Beautiful.
feel,
Yeah.
you just fully engage and feel everything what is there. That's what awakening is about. Not running away, not fixing, but just feel.
Yeah. Wow. Can I use that? Can I, what that um whatever you call it, that monologue, it's not the right word, but you know what I mean. I
And
want
my
to
story.
I want to cut that out and put it on my website. Can I do that?
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay, yeah.
That was beautiful. I'll put you right next to Paul, who has a take on what an awakening is. That's also really good, but different. You know, really good. But I love that. That was great. I feel really high listening to you. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, but no, it's just, you know, like it's, and also you kind of feel like more like appreciation and gratitude.
Yes.
Like deeper you go into all this. It's not, you know, like it's not that much, you know, like wanting to get rid of, but actually wanting just to go deeper and just feel, just more feel and just feel into everything what is there. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically all what's happening here.
Nothing basic about that, but I got what you mean. Yeah.
Like nothing is happening and a lot is happening at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
Nothing and everything at the same time. Yeah, yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
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 How have you been,
Yeah.
Ray?
Vince, did you mention my name or?
Yes, I asked how have you been?
Oh,
You
sorry.
had somewhat of a shift or whatever you want to call it last time we spoke. How have you been over the week?
I really don't have an answer to that. I'm sort of, I don't like if Whew. I signed up for the Angelo's retreat and I never showed up for that. And I just found out that it's over now, so I'm kind of happy.
What were your thoughts about that? Why you didn't go? Just what your thoughts were. Then yeah.
I don't think I don't think it's gonna make difference to me. I don't really I don't really feel like doing more sort of meditations or inquiries. I mean, I like those. And I like the effects or sort of impacts they have on me. But this whole kind of the whole sort of body motion thing that I've been having recently, and it's so strong that and I seem to be more interested in that. And it's just like it also occurred to me that maybe I don't really, I don't really want to be awakened. And I had a last New Year's resolution that I will wake up this year. Well, I know it sounds a little silly, but that was my kind of, wish. And looking at, there's just a few hours left, and probably, this is not going to happen. And
it could,
it could, of course, yes, within the next whatever. But also, it's been kind of occurring to me that I've been looking at awakening as the ultimate kind of, destination. And I went in to study some of the existential sort of Gestalt thing with some people in Ukraine recently, and one of the guys actually said that like the path is unique for everyone. So maybe I'm still trying to figure out, the my sort of bespoke way or whatever of maybe, the thing, the awakening is not like, I'm not gonna get it, like this is not for me, or this is, I mean, I don't know, it's just like there's someone decided that I need to be awakened, someone wants to be awakened, and what Anna said, it very much resonates, that once I'm awakened, I don't have to deal with all this, shadow stuff. I don't have to cry, I don't have to feel weird stuff, I don't have to, feel ambivalent emotions or feelings when I'm attracted to people, and at the same time I don't want to see them. And it feels really kind of funny. It's like it's not funny, of course, but it's just I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
And that's my answer of how this whole week been is, I don't know what to make of it. It's just, stuff emerging and then submerging. And I'm like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And I don't really like, oh God, I mean, just the some of the family stuff is coming up, and I noticed that that I have had this pattern of being sullen, of being unhappy, of looking unhappy. And so when people ask me, how are you? Usually I would just say, well, rarely I would say I'm good, and I'd mean it. Usually my response would imply that there is a lot of suffering, and I'm suffering. That's basically the message that I'm giving out. I'm suffering. Now you're asking me, I'm suffering, and I'm suffering, I'm suffering. And I was like, oh, but maybe it's just my way of asking them to help me. And it occurred to me that it's a pattern that I picked up from my family or from my parents or from their parents. And I was like, and today I was looking at it, and it looks like it's a bit entangled. Like the sadness is there, the helplessness is there. There's so many things in this pattern, and I'm used to it. I'm used to, suffering visually and internally inside, sort of viscerally. And I was like, can I change that? Like, can I try something else for a change? Can I, smile, and can I ask how people are doing? It's not like I haven't done this before. I have, but it's just my sort of modus operandi most of the time is suffering on, visually, and then and being dramatic about it. And the more I'm dramatic, and I'm like, is this am I playing a role? Like, am I like helping my mother to suffer? Like, I picked it up from her, and she's like, I'm gonna go and buy some groceries. So while I'm out, you do the suffering, and I'm like, okay. And I'm not sure. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm so much, maybe the role sort of ingrew or is entwined in with my cells. And I'm like, who wants to suffer? Me, and
Okay, shut up for a minute. Let me let me talk. What you were achieving with your talking then, besides communicating stuff to us, but it was getting a little repetitive. You were telling it again and again. But anyway, and I want you to watch what you're feeling as I say the things too, because that's juice. My fantasy, my story is that you didn't go to Angelo's retreat because you didn't want to fall apart there in that situation. That stuff that you talk about is so close to the surface that I can see it in your eyes even now, but it doesn't take very much at all for you to get really emotional, does it? It is so close to the surface that it will spill out instantly. So your suffering is a solution. Your suffering is stopping you from really suffering. You're keeping, this is my fantasy. I don't know how true it is, but that's just what I imagine when I'm listening to you, that your suffering is, you're so used to it that it's almost not suffering anymore. But it's a great protection from that really deep, heavy, hard, bad suffering that's there underneath if you let go. And that's just what I imagine is happening for you. So everything that you do is defensive, and because I see a self, the idea of a self is body armor. It's to try and protect you. So you can't let go of a self while ever you're using the self to protect you from yourself. I had to play with that last yourself, but yeah, it's there underneath. Yeah. So I reckon that if I gave you to Alan and he probed, he wouldn't have to poke the bear very much. And boy, you'd be into heavy, heavy emotion, really deep stuff. And because of this environment, as well as being in that stuff, you will see that you're in that stuff, and you'll see where it comes from, and you'll see what its intent is, and you'll see all sorts of things about it that may or may not be accurate. It doesn't matter, but you'll see lots and lots of stuff if I put it in social terms, if you're brave enough to do it. Right? But if it happens, if it's going to happen, and it just requires you to say yes, and it can happen, that you can have a look at all of that stuff that's got you so scared that you don't want to go near, and you'd much prefer the suffering you've got now than to go near that. Anyway, that's my fantasy.
I keep wondering if Andre has tried any talk therapy.
Andre has, yes, indeed. I have done transactional analysis, I've done Gestalt, I've done retreats, I've done substances, I've done, you name it, coaching.
It's all mental. It's all mental, and that's where you're residing, thinking about your victim because your mother's victim and all that, or suffering. It's all mental. It's all up in your head. Down here where Vince is talking about, where we touched on last time a little bit, and Alan can take you there. Out of your head.
But I have like I think I am scared to fall apart. You're right, I am. But I have fallen apart, and I'm just I am
Not completely, though.
see, there's ultimate falling apart, and then there's
The fear of falling apart is just a surface illusion, because once you get in,
Well, you know that because you've fallen apart, but
Yeah,
but
you've
somehow or other you put yourself together after last time you fell apart.
Yeah,
I always put myself together, of course. Yes, I have to, like you said, cross the road, shopping and.
Oh well, much more
just,
than that, yeah.
that'll still happen. That'll still happen.
it will.
Go ahead.
And what you say right there, Andre, I always put myself back together. Ah, is that something to watch? Because we have gone down this track a couple of times, haven't we? I remember when we first had a conversation, there was some deep stuff came up. And Jenny, was it last week you had a chat to Andre? So as Vince says, more than happy to go there if you'd like to. But it's watching, one of the things in this in this, shall we say, is the wanting to fix. And it can happen so subtly. I was conscious of myself this week on a number of occasions. There was this subtle wanting to fix, whereas it's just looking at what is. As we're truly willing to look at what is in the moment, then something happens. So this wanting to put it back together again, there's some seductive benefit perhaps in doing that is happening again and again. Does that ring a bell at all, or is that?
I think it just occurred to me because I was thinking about why I need this group so much, and why I need a group. And this group is awesome. And I think one of the reasons is to help me fall apart. And that's the kind of experiment I like to do with a group.
Okay. Well, right now, instead of thinking about it, what's the feeling that you've got right now?
Go.
You don't like me speaking, J.O. It's like I and then Vince is correct. It's just like I'm on a very thin ice. It's just I just press my finger, it melts, and I fucking I drop, I drown, but at the same time there's like
Now hang on. We're way back in the head again, Andre. We're way back in the head. Now we don't have to do this. We don't want to push anything here at all. But
just let me jump in here. Did you see, Andre, what you did then? Did you see how you were using words to escape? It was beautiful. It was so, you just slid into it so easily. It was so natural. But there you were running at 1,000 miles an hour away from Did you see that? Do you see it now? We're not judging it. I'm not saying it's good or bad.
no,
It's
it's right.
that it happened.
And if you didn't see it, just have a look at the video later on.
Oh no, I would never. No, I would never watch those videos. No.
Oh, really? Oh,
No.
what do you feel when we say, well, that
Oh,
would be a
just
really good idea?
I'm thinking that maybe it's useful for someone, but I'm so embarrassed to. I'm like, I hate whoever is doing it. I'm just like, no, like there's just enough. I think I have.
No, come on.
You're back doing it again.
We're back again. Game's up, buddy.
I'm glad I'm not taking this beating right now.
it's yeah. Look, it does feel like a beating, but look, this is so beautiful. Look at him, Andre.
It's all grace, man. Jump in.
We love you so much. We're not going to let you get out, right?
Okay. I appreciate it and I hate you at the same time, but more appreciation than
absolutely. So just feel. Tell us what you're feeling right now. Just
it's just tears coming up, the usual material, you know.
Mm-hmm. Let them come. Let them come. And everyone feeling this at the same time.
And watch yourself labeling them when you say the usual things. You know, you're labeling them. It's another escape. Just watch the labels.
Drop it, Andre. Drop your eyes instead of rolling them back. Just let everything fall down below the shoulders. Just let yourself drop into it, and whatever comes up, just go with it. Just let it be. Just let everything in this moment fully blossom.
And if the feeling had a voice and it wanted to say something, what would this feeling be saying? First thing that comes up.
So
No, it's not.
I want to go home.
Eh?
Like I want to go home or something.
Yeah.
What's the raw sensation? Is there a tearing or
I don't, there's no image, no nothing. It's just it's like a contraction inside of the chest and
pressure? Tell us more about the contraction. Go right into that. Go right into it. Tell us more about what it is. Is it burning? Is it cold? Is it solid? Is it sharp? Is it painful? Even though there's some labels, but get as close as you can to what it actually feels like.
Shit, someone's calling me. Sorry, I have to.
Say again.
What? Someone's calling me. I have to.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
No, don't answer the phone.
I didn't. I didn't.
Interesting.
It's just like flooding. There's no.
Just like flooding.
Yeah, it's just.
Well, let the flood happen. Let the flood happen. Just Don't describe it anymore. Just feel that flooding. Feel that flooding. Uh-huh. Is it, can you feel something holding this back? Is there a
I
pushing?
cannot describe. It just there's no like there's no. I think it's the
No, don't think. Don't think. Just what's the feeling? What's the feeling? The flooding.
it's very. Fuck. You ask me not to think, and then you ask me to.
Ask your hands. Ask your hands. Let your hands show. Where is the flooding? Where is it? What is it? What do your hands say? In your chest. Right. Now we're getting there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's like a. It's like it feels like rocks falling inside the chest, you know, when the big rocks of ice sort of, you know, they chip off and they fall. And I feel this kind of falling sort of like something inside my chest just keeps falling and keeps
Now and I'm asking you not to think and to feel. We go from the thought. As soon as you tell us it's like rocks falling, go right back to those rocks falling, like that ice. As soon as you describe that, then drop back into the feeling. So that there was flooding and now there's like blocks of ice falling. It's in the chest. Is it in the head too?
No.
That's where the escape
That
is.
they had.
Is there a feeling in the head as well?
I'm just responding with some kind of anger to what you're saying, you and Vince.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let that come. Say whatever comes. Just whatever that feeling is. Give full expression to it. No resistance to it at all. No resistance. Just let it come, Andre. Whereabouts is the anger? Just show us.
Tell him he's a prick. You can do that.
No, I had.
Yeah.
Just like I look at you and you're like fucking surgeons and you're just okay, that's okay, just open it, and then you like and then look at you like you have no fucking heart, but at the same time you're like, you know, you're operating on me and I'm like, oh, you know.
Yeah, okay. You can make a choice here. We can stop instantly. You don't have to do this.
I know.
You don't have to. But there's something that holds you here. So just go with whatever is holding. What's the feeling?
This reminds me of somebody who's trying to fight the anesthesia and stay awake.
Well, he is.
Or even the anger of you don't care. You don't care. Surgeons.
Yeah, it's more like you don't care, surgeons.
So are you just a piece of meat we're operating on, or you're a cardboard cutout? What are you that we're operating on?
Piece
Nothing.
of meat, yeah, that's good.
Piece
Yeah.
of meat, yeah. What, not worth operating on?
No, you just don't care. Like a fucking conveyor belt, you know, there's a next one coming soon.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. You are the next one. Yeah, you must be about the, I don't know, the 10th or something.
Yeah, and I mean I understand these provocations, and they like, and
Yep, yep. They don't work because you know them. Yeah.
uh,
So
it's
those
just
rocks
it's just
falling, those big blocks of ice falling, was the sensation of them falling, or was the sensation of them landing at the bottom? Were they hitting something, or were they just continually falling? What was the sensation?
well they leave a hole, so there's a
Okay.
hole open. There's
Okay.
an opening,
Yeah.
and it's just, I don't know if it's wrong or right, but it's just open. It's just
Yeah. So the falling rocks of ice caused that opening.
no,
Oh,
yeah, because there's nothing in place.
right. Yeah.
There's nothing to replace them.
What's that nothing that you described? There's nothing to replace them.
I think I should probably say it, but there's uh, like there's an urge to have a like a physical contact. There's like
Okay.
to feel the warmth of the of a body, or
Whose
and then
body?
nothing else to say. Just, I don't know, just a body, just a
Whose body?
warm, just a body.
Mummy's warm breast body?
Yeah, just warmth, comfort,
Any
security.
anybody?
Anybody with a body.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but you don't have one because you're all awake.
Put your hand on your heart. Put your hand on
On
your
what?
chest. Yes, put your hand on your chest. Feel that warmth as if it's another body. Feel it on the hole in there. As if it's a body, as if I have my hand on you right now.
That is so beautiful. And not a word. Beautiful. So, yeah, Tim, it comes to mind as Andre's experiencing that trauma can be not something that actually happened, but something that didn't happen. In this case, not getting that contact, not being held and feeling that warmth. This was trauma. The absence of something. Yeah.
So can I just suggest here, Andre, just give yourself to Jenny here. There's a beautiful warmth that comes through the feminine energy sometimes. It just can start to melt things. Sorry to interrupt, Jenny, but just give yourself to Jenny here, Andre.
It's fine. Andre, your own hands on your heart. Your own hands on your heart. Feel that empty space that was left by the rocks falling. Feel the warmth of your hands on you, as if it's my hand.
Very lonely. Like there's this Now it's changing to loneliness.
Yeah, so be with where is the loneliness in your chest? Is it in the hole? Yeah.
Oh, it's
keep
just
breathing.
it's all of it.
It's your whole chest? What is all
No,
of
it's my whole body. It's like I'm in a vacuum, and it's just black, and there's absolutely no one there, and
Oh, yeah.
there's
It's just black and empty and
yeah.
can you feel the
I don't know
warmth?
where. Yeah. Hmm?
It's okay. Feel the warmth of your hands? Can you feel the warmth of your hands?
No, not really. No.
Okay, so you're in emptiness. Just be with that. Is it scary? Is it fear? Or is it just lonely?
No, I'm not scared. It's just lonely, and there's some fear. No, there's some fear. Like I, I'm yeah. There's fear. Like there's
Where's
no
the
one. It's just me.
yeah. So just hold yourself and imagine those are hands that love you.
I feel disgust.
Yeah. Feel the disgust. Feel the disgust.
When you
The
said
nausea.
those hands hold you, I'm like,
Yeah. Okay. Feel that disgust. Be with that. Breathe into it. Breathe into the disgust. Tap your chest a little bit with your hand. Give it a little thump on your chest and breathe into it. There you go.
oh, I just wish I could remove my head. Oh,
Yeah. Does your head hurt?
yeah, it's like it's there's so much tension up in the head.
Okay. Feel your hand on your forehead. Feel the warmth of your hand. Okay, that's like my hand on your forehead. Feel the warmth. And keep breathing.
Every time you feel the urge to contract, consciously soften your body, all the muscles, and take a breath. You were contracting so forcefully, I thought you were going to stop breathing.
That's very good. Yeah, keep breathing into it. Notice
Breathe
the
and relax on the exhale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's any tenderness that you notice here, just let that have its way. Total tenderness.
I just felt it like I was suffocating at some point, and I was but now with relaxation, yeah, there's
Yeah.
the feeling of nausea or some.
Yeah. Yeah, you've ratcheted up your anxiety and you've affected the vagus nerve in your stomach. You're going from fight, flight, and now you're nauseated. So if you feel like throwing up, just throw up. Don't fight it. It's always a situation of you puke and you rally.
Yeah, take a big breath and exhale. Breathe into it. Yeah, that's going to move it, breathing it. We clamp down our breath to stop it. So breathe into it. Breathe into the nausea. Give it some air.
Like tears are the only response that I have, but they're not enough.
Yeah.
No, they're not, they feel like not enough yet, but they're just getting started. So let them be enough for now. They're just getting started. They're just peeking out like a creek. River hasn't even started yet. Breathe, breathe.
You can get back up in your head where you're comfortable now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just beautiful. Can you see what Alan was trying to show you when you start to talk and you stay in your head and build stories? Could you see that? And then he was bringing you back to your body. And then when he asked you to describe it, the mind thinks it needs to tell a story rather than just give a label. Do you see? So he was stopping the mind from going on.
Yeah, it's just, now you're saying this, I realize that there are little things that are not safe, and I think they keep, even though I think I am able to, go where I'm going right now because of whatever I did, and I just know that my wife is in the next room, and I don't,
You don't feel safe.
Yeah, don't cry in front of the women.
No,
Well,
I can't cry in front of her, but because what I'm exploring with you here is more than crying. That's how it feels like. It's like it's almost losing mine, and I mean, I haven't shown myself to her that way, so I
right.
don't feel safe like losing mine in front of her.
No, you don't feel safe because you don't need to be taking care of her right now. And you need to be being with yourself right now. And if she gets scared, you don't need to be pulled out to take care of her. So it's not a safe space. You need to be with yourself right now and not have that distraction. So I understand that. Yeah. And every time you go in here, those tears that didn't feel enough, they're going to start letting loose and start letting loose and start letting loose. And then they will feel like enough in the end. But right now they don't, because they're just getting started. So a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And if you can maybe have a call where you do feel safe sometime, where you are alone and you're not worried about people in the next room, that will probably be beneficial. But as you start letting go of the defenses, that's going to start showing up for you. A safe place to do this, because you'll be ready to even go deeper and deeper. So your environment will support you in that.
Yeah, I think I'm scared. I think that's, you said, I said there was no fear, but now I'm talking about it. I'm like, I think I'm scared shitless of, whatever's going to happen to me.
Well, the mind makes up what might happen, but nothing will happen. But the mind, yeah, I know, but the mind makes up that something will happen. So when you start to feel that fear and the mind starts to tell you, oh, just go in and feel the fear like we were just doing. But let the story brings you into the fear. Once you get the fear, you let go of the story.
Yeah. And look, you're right to be afraid. It'll be fucking catastrophic. There's no doubt about it. It will be. But it'll be okay.
It'll be catastrophic to the story. That's what it's going to be
Yes.
catastrophic to.
Yeah, that's
Well, as you're
beautiful.
approaching it, it'll feel like catastrophe for you. But yeah, but yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
That identity that's been keeping you afraid and keeping you in pain and sorrow is going to be very catastrophic to that.
But you
Andre,
know all this. You know this, don't you? You know exactly what's going to happen. You know it all. You've been so close so many times that it's familiar almost. That's why you're so good at getting away from it in your head.
And a good question too is, who will I be? Who will I be without that belief? Who will I be without suffering? And start maybe kind of inquiring about that. What does it look like to not suffer? Who will I be without that? Because some of the fear is the unknown.
and Andre, there's a question here about fear. Do you fear love?
Do I feel love?
Do you fear love? Is there a fear
Oh,
about
fear. Oh, I do. Of course. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Ah, yeah.
Did you feel
I fear what do you call it? Like pouring love, you know, when there's like you cannot control it. It's just
yeah.
Well,
that's
what it feels like here is there's so much love that's trying to burst out, and you're just holding it in.
I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Sorry.
No, no, but it's felt here.
Yeah, and the nauseousness that shows up when love comes, that's something to also to be with, that love feels nauseous to you. So yeah. So yeah, being with that nauseousness whenever you start thinking of feeling love. And the hands on you, the warmth of the hands and the love, and then the nauseousness that goes with that.
I think right before nausea, I felt like I wasn't really buying into, like there was a little mistrust or yeah.
Right, but you were with that mistrust, and then you moved into nauseousness right away. You did. You let it in.
Yeah.
That's why you felt nauseous. Yeah.
Oh,
thank you. That was just beautiful, Andre. So good, such good work.
Thank you for being with me.
And the idea that you have to get to a certain point to get any value out of it, for something to change, that's bullshit too. What you just went through is it's already changed you. You're different because of it, even though it was no great climax. It still will change you.
And just watch for any attempt to put it back together as it was.
And that'll be first line of defense will be thoughts, thinking, stories. And those stories will be just generate that low level suffering that you live with, that you're so familiar with, probably. That'll be how you'll put it back together, I imagine, anyway.
And who would I be without the suffering? Because it's almost like it's like an identity of suffering, and then we create these identities, and sometimes a bridge out is to have an idea of an identity that wouldn't be suffering as a bridge out.
Yeah, I think I tried it, but it's just like when I try to see what it's like without suffering, because I'm trying to see it from the point of suffering, I'm like, oh, there's no point of seeing it. There's like, yeah. And I think suffering is like a bullet point on my resume, and if I remove it, then the whole foundation falls down.
Exactly. And that's the devastation you're afraid of. And that's why I'm saying, who would I be without the suffering? Who, and just don't just allow the question. Don't think of an answer. You're not, because the mind's going to think of an answer from suffering. You're going to just do it and let it waft through you. Who would I be without suffering? And then don't get an answer. Don't get an answer. It can only come from the old mind. because that's exactly what you're afraid of, that losing that bullet point. Who would you be without suffering?
I get this image, this movie of approaching catastrophe, and after catastrophe, annihilation, total annihilation.
Who would you be without suffering? It's on your freaking resume. And you don't know, so you can't think of the answer. You can only play with the question.
Yeah, I can see the mind, yeah, coming back. Yeah. Oh God. Okay.
And just remember, just laugh with recognition. That's the idea. When you see it, yeah, it's pretty fucking funny.
It's funny. It's like I think this is like a drug for me, basically, this group, and I just keep coming for more.
Me too. Me too. I get high every time.
Junkie. Yeah, yeah.
But just as an aside, I just love the way this happened. Andre, you know, Vince and I, we were the surgeons who didn't care. And then Jenny's beautiful feminine energy came in, and that started to melt things. It's just, there's so many subtleties here that we've just got to be open, curiously open to. And I just thought that was beautiful the way that flowed. So thank you, Jenny, and
include Tim as well there. Tim,
sorry.
Tim couldn't contain himself either. He just had to jump in and give you some love as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. But it was just for me a contrast of the, you know, Tim, you and I, Vince, with and whoever the male's jumping in as against the female. It was very sweet. But how did you feel? That's my story. But was there a sense there at all for you, Andre? Was that?
No, it was. I could see I was fighting you, and I didn't want to fight you. I just wanted to, you know, dive deeper. But I'm not diving deeper. I'll just keep fighting you on this level. You know, I'll fucking. What are you doing? You're heartless beasts, and that's the way of me sort of getting stuck, and fight with you against you know, like I was like this. Someone said I had my eyes closed about anesthesia. Like just, you know, give it into anesthesia and just, you know. But no, like, what did you say? You know, it was like, but I think it's also from childhood something. I don't know.
Yeah. So you had enough insight to see that you were fighting.
Yeah.
On, you know, you could see how your defenses were being activated as a result of that. Yeah. And of course, there's an argument goes on the sidelines about, you know, well, they're trying to help you, but you know, it goes back and forth, all those kind of things. But you had the insight to see what was going on. That's a brilliant first step, you know. I mean, it might sound ordinary to you, but it's a really, really brilliant first step, because from that moment on, the moment you're seeing that it is happening, you're not involved in it to the same level. Yeah, there's a certain extraction that happens, maybe not complete, but certainly to a degree. You're not totally sucked into it anymore.
And Andre, for the new year, what do you think being awake is? Other than what Vince just said, you seeing you with awareness. In the moment you saw that you were fighting them, you were awake.
And so what if you go, okay, I'll keep suffering. That's okay. In fact, I don't mind suffering. In fact, my suffering isn't bad. I don't mind it at all. And then you go, oh, fuck, I can't call it suffering anymore because I'm enjoying it.
So what is awake other than seeing?
Yeah.
In that moment, you're awake.
Come on, Andre, it's not midnight yet. You've still got 3 minutes. And I'm not joking. I'm not joking at all. Man, you can see something right now. I can see that you can see something right now. And it's not something you got to buy, because what you're seeing is not negotiable. It's just what it is. What is it that you're seeing right now? That everything's okay. What is it? Oh, no, you're back in your head.
So go back to what is awake? What is awake? You saw that you were fighting them. You saw that. Instead of just unconsciously fighting them in a program, asleep in a program that's fighting them, versus seeing yourself fighting them.
It's
Don't think, just look. Don't
no,
think.
no. I was like, I didn't have enough. Like it was. I
You
didn't go
noticed
all the way.
No.
Wasn't good
You
enough.
were all the way in that moment. So you have an idea of what being awake is, and you're comparing what happened with you to that idea of what being awake is. It's a fantasy. You were awake in the moment that you saw yourself fighting them. In that moment, you were awake. And then your mind says, no, I wasn't. I wasn't all the way. Because you think being awake looks like something that's not real. In that moment.
What you're going through now is second feta stuff. It's not first feta stuff. You know there's no self there, right? What you're going through is doubt. That's what it is. Second feta stuff. So you're already awake, but you're experiencing doubt. That's it.
In that moment, which is all that exists, it's what's happening right this moment. And in the moment you see yourself fighting them, you are awake. Now you might go back into your head in a story. That doesn't mean you weren't awake. And now you're awake, you went into the story. So you're awake again.
Okay,
It's
so
not
you saw that you were fighting it, you're awake, and then you said, I shouldn't be fighting it, and you're asleep again.
the story puts you to sleep. Being aware of the story, even though the story's still there, makes you awake. Awake is not some crazy Buddha fantasy.
Right. So you can be awake, and then you can be asleep, and then you can be awake, and then you can be asleep, all in 3 minutes.
Okay, can I say something?
Yeah, no, yes.
No, but I'm like, I am looking at it like, okay, yeah, I saw that the fight was there, but now you say awake, and I'm like, but maybe not fully awake, because there was something else going on at the same time, and I didn't see it.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Like,
when you're fully awake,
there was love.
when you're fully awake, you'll realize there's no such thing as fully awake.
It's just the mind wrapping more stories. But just instead of focusing on how you weren't all the way awake and minimizing it, for that elusive goal of being awake, because we all do that. That's the doubt, right? Come back to the moment that you are awake and focus on that.
Yeah, maybe like Vince said, doubt. It's like, there's yes, but.
Yeah.
It's just right now, I just feel there's so much resistance as to looking at this, what seems like a mundane description, or trivial almost.
It is.
And
It is.
and calling it awake. No way. Like,
I know, and you fight with that.
I have to see you as light, and that's when I'm awake, and I'm light, and we're all light, and it's all mystical.
So this is the moment when you stop believing in Santa. Fuck.
I was so mad when I realized this is it.
This is so ordinary. Ordinary is not an ordinary enough word for it.
Oh my
I
God.
was so mad. It took me about 24 hours, 36 hours to stop being mad. This was it.
It took me about 5 years.
What was that, Tim?
Well, but I sort of had done enough work to recognize that awareness was as much an aspect of this being as anything else, like a piece of my anatomy, primary. All the reading that I do, all the juice I was deriving from being a spiritual minded, on a path person was gone. And I was angry that that was gone.
Right.
You know, because I loved the juice that I got from it. And it's like, oh, well, and then every book I read, consciousness awareness, your consciousness awareness, your consciousness awareness. Your kind of next level stuff here, where it's like, okay, your consciousness awareness, but you're not fully in the now of that. You know, you've got this going on, you got that going on, and you don't see the problems that you're creating for yourself and not recognizing it. I just sort of sat in that state of awareness, you know, without any sort of big wow, expecting the big wow to sort of make that switch for me, which is what I'm still sort of carrot on a sticking.
Yeah. Yeah. And once because when you're looking at being awake from believing you're asleep, it looks like this big burst of, I don't know, whatever's going to happen, and but there's like, everybody has an experience of this differently.
Yeah.
So when I realized that this is it, I fought that for a while. I kept seeking after it because I refused to accept that this is it. What's actually happening is it. And the awareness of this, actually what's happening is it. And and when I finally surrendered that, I was so angry because I wanted anything but this. And so when who was explaining, Vince, the beauty of it's not going out of your body and being nothing and dropping and just being this floaty, I don't know, God knows what Kundalini expression of bliss. But what happens is because we stop fighting all the emotions, we can experience what we used to label bad. We can experience good. We experience everything. And that's freaking blissful. And when it's not, then it feels not, and we experience it. And then it turns blissful, because the only thing that's making life not blissful is what we're making up about it.
And I don't know whether it happens for anyone else, but I look at this now and it is such a miracle that we're able to fool ourselves to such an extent. I mean, you feel an absolute stupid fool sometimes, and you think, how were we able to do this?
Yeah.
What is it George Harrison said? I see you, oh my gosh, I see you there. And the love that is sleeping while my guitar gently weeps.
Mm-hmm.
I would even make up, like I would avoid groups that were actually conscious and present and being aware, because they weren't awake. And I wanted some, I don't know, LSD trip or something, God, you know? And that's when we stop fighting what is, it starts to morph into bliss. Because we're not fighting it, trying to get away from it into some trip. This is it. And you're awake.
What's going on, Andre?
I am fascinated and disappointed at the same time.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but you're disappointed. You're disappointed at what you're imagining, not what.
Yes, of course.
You can't for a moment appreciate what it's like to be awake because you're not awake. So you've got to be awake. Now look, here's the story. Here's something for your head to play around with, right? I don't ever look when I'm guiding people. I don't ever look for no self, because that's a bullshit thing. No self. How can you look for something that isn't there? It's like trying to grab hold of the space in a hole. You can't do it, right? What is there is stories. You have got millions and millions of stories that you've picked up and generated about Andre over your lifetime. what his likes are, what his dislikes are, what he looks like, what other people think about him, blah, 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 blah. The book's about that thick with characteristics of Andre. That's what you've got. You've got a story about Andre, millions of stories about Andre. And some of those stories are about Andre not being awake. So consequently, because you respond to stories, as we all do, we all respond to stories. Here's a secret, an open secret. It's fucking stories all the way down. There's nothing but stories and how we respond to those stories. So somewhere down at a level, there's a story that Andre has never accepted as his own. It's not part of the book of self of Andre, right? The story that he's awake. Now, guess what? You've got a story that you're not awake. You're going to approach a situation with a certain attitude. You've got a story that you are awake. You're going to approach that same situation with a different attitude. I wasn't joking about your suffering turning into something that you quite enjoy. There's no joke about that. That's just the way you look at it. It's suffering because of the way you look at it. It's suffering because of the story that says Andre is not awake and therefore he's got to look at it from this particular perspective. And you fucking don't. You don't really at all, right? I had an interesting experience just after I woke up, about 2 months after I woke up, when my sister-in-law died. And she was a good friend, and I was asked to do the eulogy, and I thought, I can't do that. I can't get up in front of all those people and talk. So what I did was I wrote a new chapter. You know, it was a very short chapter. Vince can do it. And I put it in the book of Vince. And I got up and I bloody did a eulogy, and it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I broke down and cried, and so did everybody in the hall, and it was great. We loved it. It was great. But all I did was I just added a chapter to the story of Vince. It was easy. So you add a chapter to the story of Andre that says, oh, I did have that moment where I saw myself fighting it. That means I can do it. Right? That's the beginning of that chapter. He thought he could do it. And then he said, are we there yet? And somebody said, nah, keep going.
Awake is just aware. Awake is, because think of our lives that we've ran, totally lost in stories, believing they were us, believing they were true. And the moment you see and you get a glimpse that it's not true, and you see yourself doing a pattern called resisting, you have an awakening. That's awake. You're not lost in the story.
I love that you said you're so disappointed, Andre.
Yes.
Andre wanted to wake up so badly, and the big disappointment is there's no Andre to wake up.
Where's my LSD trip? Oh my God, what? This is it? I was pissed for 3 days. I'm telling you, I was so mad. This is it. But I'll tell you, once you realize that this is it, it gets interesting.
Vince, did you say we love our stories, even as painful as they are?
Yeah, well, why would you have them if you didn't love them? Everything is a solution. It's always a solution. But once, yeah, there's a whole lot of delusions that are normal in society. Things like responsibility and choice and control and those kind of things, you know, and once we see through them, when a story appears, it's a story that's appeared. You know, what else? All of the, and there's a whole lot of stories that hang off those stories. So there's no choice about whether they're going to appear or not appear. They're there. You know, their thoughts, whether they're audible or textual or visual or whatever kind of thoughts they are, or whatever mixture of those things they are, they just appear. And a one-word thought can contain a whole book. It can be like the heading of a book, and inside that one word is thoughts that if you articulated them, you would be going for hours to do it. So they're fucking magical, aren't they? The way thoughts appear and what they can do and everything. And although we don't have a choice as to whether we respond to it or not, this kind of talking about it somehow develops the skill of being able to see it happen, of being outside of it rather than involved in it. And it's easy to come up with an idea of a progression or a journey or a movement forward or however you want to conceptualize it, because what I used to call shit, that's often now good stuff, it kind of comes up less and less and less. And it gets to the point where I look forward to the next time a bit of shit happens, because I'm looking for something to work with, you know. So it does happen less and less. And that LSD trip stuff, that is there for sure. You know, that comes and goes too. But you're not going to get it while you've got a story that I'm not awake. But you can't choose to change a story, can you? But you can get better and better at spotting those little moments, like I saw myself resisting. Right? And if you want to ever have one of those moments, it's so easy. Just ask the body. What are my hands telling me? Their hands are so expressive. They'll tell you things. What are you feeling? That'll tell you stuff. Your body won't lie to you. Your fucking head will lie to you every time, but your body will never lie to you.
So you're becoming aware of resisting, aware of sensations. So you focus on when you're aware, because that's when you're awake. When you're in your head telling stories and you get lost in those stories, you're taking a little nap until you wake up and realize you're telling stories, and you can even watch yourself tell the story. So you can be doing both at the same time. Aware is what's happening right now. Storytelling, feelings, sensations, meaning. What's happening right now? And you're aware of it. That's awake. And we go in and out. I fall asleep in my stories, and then I pop out the other end, or I'll catch myself just starting to go into a story. But it's not an LSD trip.
So, sorry, Jenny, are you saying that there's one thing to be aware of at a given time, or?
No, you're aware of whatever is happening. Whatever is happening. My voice right now is happening.
Okay.
If you start to talk, that's what's happening. If you start to think, that's what's happening. You're feeling something in your body, that's what's happening. There's only the moment. So whatever is happening in the moment is what's happening. And when we get off on these stories, telling stories, we're not here in the moment. We're in past or future, which is fine too, because the awareness can watch you go from past to future. You're just aware. And that's awake. Not that you're still not dipping into the past and future.
I think there's like a fantasy or a hypothesis that at any given moment, I have to be aware of, like, not 1, 2, 3, whatever I am able to see, but all of it. Like, resistance, storytelling, all of it.
But it happens in the moment, which is only like a fraction of a second. So you're not really paying attention to all of it, and you are. Sometimes you are aware of all of it. Sometimes you're not. That doesn't mean you're not awake. It just means it's what you're aware of. And as you start watching patterns, and the patterns start letting go, that's that little glimpse of I'm resisting, I'm awake, I see myself resisting. You start focusing on that and watching the patterns, that gap is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And because there's going to be less noise, less to watch, So don't try to see it all right now, just the moment. And then focus on that so that it'll strengthen and grow.
Yeah, I just
Thank you.
would like to add that these are all pointers. And then, eventually you'll start discovering your own pointers from internal pointers,
Mhm.
So it's not a rule book or anything. And it's not, you just watch how, like Jenny described it, the gap grows or whatever, because we all have a different way of experiencing or describing. So yeah, just see these as pointers and don't hold on to it like it's a rule or anything. That's all.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So just pay attention to that gap when you were awake, and then you will start discovering your own way of explaining it.
Yeah, add to that, you will start discovering your own nature. Right. So like if it fits for you, when I say to you that you spend an excessive amount of time in your head thinking about things, you analyze things to death, and that's an escape. If that fits for you, if it feels right, then you start noticing that happening. And as you start noticing it happening, it changes because you're noticing it, not because you're wanting it to change, not because you say it's wrong, just because you're noticing it happening, and it's actually inappropriate. It's a situation where it's more appropriate to feel something or to express some of that love. Yeah, Jesus, man, I think I've cried twice tonight. It pours out of me sometimes. I can't stop it. I wouldn't try to stop it. In fact, I enjoy it. Yeah, it's all okay. There's nothing wrong. So when Anna was talking and she was saying, and Jenny was saying, and I haven't said it tonight, but yeah, it was my portal that I fell through, was this is it. No matter what is happening, you can't fucking think of a single thing that you could tell me that is happening that isn't it. That isn't it. Everything is it. The bad, the good, and the ugly, or something like that. Everything. It's all it. And when I fell through that portal, I came to the realization, I had the realization as part of the epiphany, that it was all in the past. What I become aware of, there was a 0.05 millisecond delay between the happening and my awareness of the happening. So whatever I became aware of as happening was already finished. So it's a joke to think that it should be different, because that's just adding a post-it note, a story of misery on top of it, to think it should have been different, because it's done. So total acceptance of the fact that whatever I become aware of is it. It's done and finished, and it's it. And so it's pointless to have an opinion about it, especially when I realize that opinions are all judgments. But it's absolutely pointless. It's just, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it.
And all of this comes from being the conscious observer. There's a part of you, the observer, that watched yourself resisting Alan. And that conscious observer, for lack of a better description, is you. Watching your patterns, if you're all in the past, or if you're in your head, or if you are resisting someone. You're the watcher. And the more you focus on being the watcher, and you don't have to see it all, because it's not watching, it's just observing. Yeah, it's just seeing. You're the seer, and you watch the patterns. That's why we bring you into the emotions in your body, because you're watching the patterns and you're coming into your body and out of your stories. But the watcher is awake.
And always present.
And if you're upset because you're not getting your fifth dimensional interplanetary trip, join the crowd.
And you know, I was really struck the last time you started to speak there, Andre. You said, I think there's a fantasy, and you went on to describe the fantasy. You know, there's a knowing that, but we don't even, Jenny was talking about this gap widening. There are times when we hear ourselves talk and we see what we're saying is true or not true. And often we speak the truth and we don't even realize we're speaking it, but we don't believe it.
Yeah, without doubt, you would get good value out of watching yourself in this again. You would.
Then go on.
Come on, you've like, there's a moment when you listen to your own recorded voice or your own video that's like, I have done that and I'm okay with that. But doing what I'm doing is so embarrassing to, you know, to part of me. And it's just like, it's enough. I know it's out there. It's okay. It's just, it's enough for me to not, you know, think about it. But I mean, I might, but, and it's just, I don't know. It's a new level of suffering when you watch your own suffering, you know, to
That just
enjoy
takes the
it.
story going. That just
When you
takes the story going. You put your
Yeah.
clown nose on in 1 minute, and then you take the clown nose off and go, oh God, that guy was such a fool. And then you don't realize that you put it back on.
Well, part of it too is when you put your hands on yourself and you say, and you touch with yourself with love, and you get nauseous with that, it might trigger so much for you to go in and watch yourself because you're already nauseous by your own self-love. It's very intense. So as you sit with that nauseousness of love, ultimately you'll be able to go back and watch those videos.
So you know how we were talking about when you realize when you're lost in thought and you're kind of just acting out the content of a thought story and you're just emotional, you know, you're involved in it. And then we're talking about you kind of step back and you can see that happening. You can see what's going on. It's still going on, but you can see it happening. Right. So there's a kind of a one step removed observation that somebody would call it the witness and whatever, you know, call it whatever you like, but it's watching what's going on. So if you were to replay this video just in your mind now, you're watching yourself in the video, you could be entirely engrossed in what you in the video are saying and doing. You could be so involved in that. And if you were, what you would be doing is you would be having nonstop opinions about what Andre in the video is saying and doing and so on. And so you would be totally lost in this cycle of seeing the video and responding to the video in that way, right? The appropriate thing to do, though, is to allow that to happen, whatever it happens, but watch what goes on inside your body as you are watching that going on. All right, so now we're back 3 steps from the video. We're back there, we're watching, you're in the video, you're watching the video, you're responding to the video, and you're seeing what's going on in your body. So you're not lost in what the responding is about. You're watching the process of responding that's going on in the body as you're watching it. That's where the value is for you.
Yeah, that's gold. That's gold. Watching those reactions within your body.
Yeah.
And pause it and really feel at that moment. Let that just be totally curious and explore that reaction, that feeling, that emotion.
Because being awake isn't about not having reactions. It's about being the watcher of the reactions.
And
May I say something?
Yes, of course. Don't ask.
There's also, like, I find it's very valuable to investigate why do we want that? That idea what we have created, what awakening is, like what that is going to give me, like when I get that big trophy, what that is going to give me. Because like in my case, like what I have seen, like when I get it, I will get something so big I can shovel that into their faces, and they eventually say, yes, and you are worthy of something. You have achieved something so big like no one else can achieve. Because that's, that self-worth is just like so nothing. So you need something to prove yourself, like how great you are, how well you're doing. You're so good, Anna, you're so great. But that was my story. So that's, and then, like when you realize like you're achieving nothing and you get nowhere, it is very, like you're getting like hit over the head.
Yeah, so good, Anna.
I think we all, like to some degree have this idea, like when I get something big.
Like there's somewhere to get and I've arrived.
Yes, yeah. And that's another thing. Yeah, like I'm here now, everything is wrong now, but when I get there, that's when my life is going to start. That's when I will believe in just in that's such a miracle life.
And I'll be bulletproof. Nothing will bother me because I'll be
that's absolutely, Jenny. That's just 100%. Nothing is going to touch me. I will be just in such bliss, like financial problems will be sorted. All my life will be sorted.
Always compassionate, always loving, never reactive.
Yeah. And everyone will be, oh, Anna, you're so great.
Oh, where's my halo? Yeah.
And
everywhere I go,
Eckhart Tolle even won the lottery. You could do that too. I can't, but he did.
and everywhere I go, the vibration will shift and everybody will be loving. Like, kind of like some kind of angel freaking or something. Yeah. It's just,
And then, like you will be so great because you will feel everyone and you can help everyone. And everyone will be, oh my God, Anna, you're so good.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's what the ego is trying to say. But the cool thing is there's some truth in that as I open that gap of just what's here and I look at my patterns and and that energy moves through those patterns, I am more connected. I can feel people. And sad emotions that used to seem sad aren't painful anymore. They're just kind of energy in the body. And so there's some truth to it, but it's not like this. Now
there is some truth, but like you are feeling you are getting connected, but there is no one, oh, look at me now.
No,
yeah,
no,
that's the difference.
Nothing connected to nothing. It's just is. It just is what's happening. And it sounds, I think some of this language makes it sound like it's some elusive place that we've got to jump to, but it's seen through by looking with awareness. It's seen that there's no one over there. I'm talking to myself. But it's seen in time with awareness, because the story falls apart. That's why we are already that, but the story falls apart and it can't be believed anymore. And then we realize, oh, I was always that.
Almost probably, I am making this up, Andre, but when I just look at you on the screen at the moment, there seems to be a feeling I can't believe this.
No, it's more of a, I think I'm agreeing to, I agree to what I hear and what you're saying, but I'm sort of, there's still some part of me that is like, oh, there has to be like a bigger picture or something. They're like, it's not believing, not more like, I think they're the flavor of a doubt more than maybe. I think not believing is if it's the same energy, but yeah, but it's not like, it's not aggressive not believing. It's more like, you know,
Death of hope.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There is a lot more to it, but we're going to keep it a secret until you join the club and learn how to do the right handshake. Yeah?
That's the death of hope. The death of hope. It's a slow kill.
It just also it occurred to me, I spent so much money paying people who would tell me how great I was.
Oh,
I don't know, maybe a couple, and so much money, and more mystical, sort of esoteric.
Yeah.
Their affirmation about me is, the more I'm like, oh yeah, this is money well, worth spend, and oh, you're like like Jenny said, fifth dimensional, seventh dimensional, blah blah blah. I can see through people with my X-rays, and I can fly, and that kind of shit. And I'm sure I still, like, there's part of me that still wants that, and I haven't given up. So yeah, that's. So
Well,
I'll see you when I fly.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see you in the seventh dimension as we're flying, because you know what, really, as you become aware and you realize this is it, because you can't get there from here. You can't get there from the stories. But as you start realizing that you're awake and aware and you unravel, then you do become more empathic. You do become more connected. Gravity is made up. It's a story that we've all agreed on collectively. So you do start understanding this expanded information, but you understand it because the lies fall apart. And so where you start is here, because you can't get there from here. You've got to start here. Right here with your sorrow and your vibrations in your body and the stories you're making up right here that take you out of this present moment, because this right here is all that actually exists. And it's the only way to get where you think you want to go.
And here's another story that just popped into my mind, Andre. I think that you're going to make a great guide. You're very lucid. You express yourself really well, and you've got some kind of, I don't know what it is, charisma or confidence or something that you will make a really good guide. When the time comes for you to pay it forward, you will. And you won't charge anybody.
No.
That's my story anyway.
Yeah, because once you understand, as you become aware and you start unraveling the mechanism of this belief structure, you'll be able to explain it to someone else, because you are very eloquent.
Mm. I feel nausea.
Oh no, something. Yeah. Good. Barf it all out. It's awesome.
I just have to, I almost have to do this when people talk about New Year's resolutions.
But so I have a question. I have had these moments of where I am like, when I think about, I've read this book, I listened to this book, it's called 2150. And it basically describes like a utopian world where people, love each other and attune to each other, and they basically live out of their hearts, not their egos and all that. And it's all nice and it's all flowers and it's all, and when I read it, I cried, and I think every time I think about it, there's a part of me that thinks that this place has to be that way. Like that's the normal sort of way people should interact, and with love and care and compassion and all that. And sometimes I feel like sort of start crying because it's not like that, and probably won't be. And then I think, is it my personal kind of trauma thing, or is it me sort of feeling a collective, or or does it
Oh,
make like
it's always you, because you're the only one there, just like there's no one out there. So this place where it's a utopia where everybody's connected can only happen within you. So it's not something out there. First you go in, you be aware, you realize you're awake, you go in and look at your patterns, you unresolve your patterns. You're seeing through your patterns. You're seeing a world, because thoughts create worlds and they create realities. So you can only perceive what you haven't looked at within yourself. So if you're rejecting yourself, you've got to see that outside of you. So the only way to get there is what we're talking about right now. Go in and look through yourself and be in love with your sorrow and your happiness and all your emotions. So there's no rejection within you, because you're the microcosm. And what you see out there has to shift, because you won't be seeing through those filters anymore.
Yeah.
It's like that film Avatar.
What's that?
What's that?
It's like that film Avatar, our very first
Oh.
one. Yeah, that's actually when my unintentional search began. It touched me so deeply, you know, that no harm and connection and feeling everything, and just I was like, oh my gosh, that's how everything like should be. That's how humans should live. And that was just like, just something touched me so deeply, like you're saying about this book.
That's the truth of who we are. That's who we are without our stories, without
Mm.
our patterns and our filters and our resisting, and I can't feel sorrow, and you know, all of this is without those stories. That's who we are, but we can't get here without going here.
This
And
idea
remember,
is saying this, you know, that first awakening is up and out. You get into that spaciousness, and then you have to go down and in, bring all the presence into our body.
And then you go back out again.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
No
and that
limits.
can happen
No
over and
boundaries.
over and over.
Andre,
Retreat.
I have a memory, one of the few memories I have of my childhood, and I don't remember how old I was, but I'm guessing maybe I was 10 or something. I don't know. But I remember saying to my mother, a serious mistake has been made. I should not have been born into this world. The one I was meant to be born into was like that one you described in that book. I had that clear memory as a child of telling that to my mother. She thought I was crazy, but you know, that was it. And you know what? Now I've discovered that world actually does exist, and it is here, and it is masquerading as this world, but down underneath, I've got these friends now who have got 180-degree different political opinions to mine. You know, they are really right-wing, really conservative people, and yet every single one of them is got a lot of love in them. They have, even though they've got these stupid ideas about how things should be.
You start
I
seeing
like
the
that, Vin. I really liked that childhood insight
Yeah.
you had. It's beautiful.
Yeah, you go in there and you're going to start seeing the world different. But the only way to do that, because that book is who we are. That's who we are. That's no accident. But you can't just snap your fingers and go to the fifth dimension and go, whoop, here we are on another planet. And everybody, you know, no, you heal the world by healing yourself. Because it's a perception that's projected. You can't hear what they're actually saying. We can only hear what we're perceiving.
Yeah. Nothing to do, nothing to do, nothing to do.
And it's happening. Exactly. There's nothing to do. You just being awake, which is what you are when you're being aware, right? That's all there is to do, because it's in the witness, the unconditioned, unconditional witness, that energy shifts. That's all there is. There's nothing to do. Life is happening. It's happening for us. It's happening with us. We're like a kaleidoscope of energy, and it shifts, and all we do is watch. There's nowhere to get. And witness of yourself bleeds into the unconditioned witness of all. There's nothing to do.
Yeah, sometimes I look at my cat and I try to pick it up off the cat to this kind of just being, or
Well, you're just being, but you're also bypassing what you're actually feeling inside, which is what's also happening. Being with what's happening includes what you're feeling, where you're trying to sit like a cat with a clear mind. But an empty mind isn't something that bypasses the whole of the being, which also means what's happening is what you're feeling if you're having a story going through. So your beingness, your awareness is like the cat. Yeah. Your awareness is like the cat, right? But the awareness is not watching the cat, because you're a human. So the awareness is going to be like the cat watching the human. We lose him?
Yep, he's gone. Yeah.
Well.
Okay. So, all right, before we wrap up, let's hear from David. How are you traveling, mate?
I don't know if you want to hear.
That makes me really curious.
This whole meeting has been pushing buttons for me. When Vince, you said to someone that what's here is love and acceptance, I recognized that that's not what's here for me. What's here is like wanting to fix or adjust what people are saying to set it right, to basically to fix it according to what I feel needs should be. So I've been sitting with that and suffering through, like not speaking up and not getting involved, fidgeting. Well, that's another thing. In looking at myself on these videos, eye-opening. I never recognized. I was aware to some extent, like probably ADD, yeah, but a lot of it is like neediness, not being open to where other people are, what they're saying, always wanting to intervene, correct. So at a certain point, I recognized that as doing this sense that I can do something, that what's happening should be a certain way. And that just brought me back to the whole illusion of doership. And then I relaxed from that point. Like right now, this all sounds stupid, the way it's coming out. It's not,
No, it doesn't sound stupid.
it sounds stupid compared to the way I've been. like what I wanted to do in this meeting is come here and go through a bunch of insights that I've had, or things like that. But then like when Vince said that what's here is love and acceptance, the thought of outing myself occurred, and I felt resistance to that. Like, I don't want to go there. But then I realized I have to go there because that's what's been happening. So it's been like just looking at the impatience, the sense that things should be other than what they are, and the sense of someone here who wants things to be other than what they are, and feels a need that they should be. So that's what's been going on.
And you see different things when you look at yourself on the video. What I saw for most of the last couple of hours is you being quite still and quite apparently calm.
I'm fidgeting with anything here.
Okay, down below, right?
But I think I'm probably always doing that. I'm always in motion. The resting state here is close to the boiling point. But that's just the way it is. Like that this nervous system. So I recognize that, and it's fine. It is what it is. And I can see it. And like the first thing that occurred to me this morning, I wasn't even really awake yet, was here and like this. And like this means this hardware has its own experiential signature. And no matter the experience, there's a signature to it. And that's just, it is what it is. And that's fine. Like we talked about.
Is there room in there for it to change little or any amount, or is it fixed?
No, I feel it's open to whatever. Yeah.
Right. So when you said you felt like outing yourself, that sounds big. It sounds like you have one of the stories you've got is that you're a fraud.
Well, like there's a child here, and the other children are getting all the attention. They're getting a talk. People are working with them, and there's like a child here who wants that attention. Another thing that occurred to me this morning was in therapy. I remember first I was looking at this basic sense of contraction and like the clenched fist that people often use that metaphor for there's a very basic sense of contraction. And once, Vince, you used the example of no longer seeking as kind of an indication of being awake. Later, it occurred to me that another one is that absence of that contraction, that when that clenched fist relaxes.
Yeah.
And that is connected with seeking. They're probably the same thing.
Mm. Yeah, I would say
So
the twist is very much a holding on.
yeah. Well, the other thing that occurred to me, like in therapy, I remember talking about a childhood fantasy of having a flying car, and through the windshield was always a cosmic view. It was more like a spaceship. So I'd lie in bed at night and kind of go on a ride, and I could push buttons and pizza would come out from the dashboard, like on a conveyor. And it struck me that that's basically a return to the womb fantasy, where nourishment comes down and there's complete encapsulation and safety. So I think I connect that with the contraction. The contraction is ultimately pulling, drawing inward to a point, which is for the body a fetal position. And ultimately it's just an impulse to return to that embryonic state. Like the world is just it's too much. The nervous system is too much. So, but it, now I can see that all is predicated on someone being here.
Yep.
When there is no illusion. So on the gross level, I see through the illusion of a separate self, but in the body, in the energy field, and in these deeper layers, there's still something that needs to be worked through. And the release came in recognizing that I cannot impact what happens. I'm not a causative agent.
Yep, great.
So I think that if that just happens, I guess it just needs to happen again and again as it comes up.
And it will.
Yep.
Yeah.
So David, going back to when you were outing yourself because you weren't getting the attention, a child
No.
wasn't getting.
I was outing myself because I'm not coming from love and support toward others.
Right, because you wanted to share your insights and you wanted the attention to come onto you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm
you
critical of others.
Right. And that's because you weren't feeling attended to, and you wanted to share these insights, and you have shared beautiful insights. But let's go into what you were feeling before Alan called on you, and the begrudging child, the begrudging boy who was not getting attention and not being able to share his wisdom and his insights that he's gained. Because I think that's more core even than your insights. The fidgeting that you've been doing, the tolerating of the call that you've been doing, underneath the desire to share what you just expressed. Before that, not feeling heard, not feeling seen, not attended to, attention going to everyone but you. Probably a very familiar feeling. Can you feel it now?
What I feel now is kind of like, I want to say, the electricity of this nervous system. Yeah, it's like it vibrates at a kind of a high frequency, and
So when you were feeling those things during the call, was your awareness on that in your body and feeling it and being with it and being aware of it and allowing it to be?
Yeah, well, at times, and I think the fidgeting is an attempt to dissipate it, to like dissipate it.
And now that you've been called on and you're able to fulfill the desire that you were having to share your insights, what's there now?
It's ramped up.
Hmm. Yeah, keep breathing into it. And noticing both sides before you could speak and also after you could speak.
I guess I want to say, like, I know this has gone on for a long meeting, and I see what maybe I can resume this. Maybe I'm just diverting now, but like I recognize that this is the like my root fundamental stance toward people in my environment.
Yeah, and you may not need to do it right now if the call's been going long, and you may be sidestepping, but it doesn't matter because you can do this on your own too.
Yeah.
You don't need us to do this. When you're aware of, wow, look what I was feeling, what happened after I shared, me chomping on the bit, needing to share, that needing to be seen. Not that the insights aren't valid or important, but then it's the needing underneath it, the anxiousness. And then also, like you said, it's amped up now that you have been seen. So this is something you can sit with without going in your head. And just and be with.
Yeah. And I wonder, David, if there's a story there about fixing this nervous system, changing it, making it better.
Yeah.
So it may be worth having the fantasy that it's never going to get better, but you're going to feel a lot more comfortable with it. And that may or may not be true. It may or may not happen. We have no idea about that. But your best chance for it to change is to accept it.
Yeah, like thought, it's not the content, it's the relation to the thought.
Yep.
It's not the nervous system, it's the relation to
absolutely
the nervous system.
Yeah, you've got good insight, absolutely good insight. So it's it'll happen. Yeah, great. Yeah. And thank you for your appreciation of the time of the call. In my mind, I said, I'll get to David a lot sooner next time. So he's got time to go somewhere if he wants. Yeah. Yeah, they go on. I often think these calls could go all day if my bladder would hold out.
It's your own retreat, Vince.
Yeah. I keep hearing about all these people who have paid money to therapists, and I think, geez, I could get really rich doing this. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy every day to you. Yeah. And
Happy every day.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Happy-
everyone. That was lovely.
Yeah. Lovely.
Thank you.